kind of a real broad, it doesn't tell us if it's human or if a raccoon just pooped right upstream and would throw the results off. But after we collect a lot of samples, maybe we can get a good idea of what's going on. Again, northeast Tacoma had, there is no big spike between northeast Tacoma and the downstream Stonebrook sample. So as far as I can see, there's nothing really gushing into the creek from those septic systems. But then you say, whoa, what's going on here? Why is Stonebrook outlet so high here? Well, if you look at this number here, this was the rain event at what we call the first flush on October 23rd. And remember, we had an extended dry period, and then it rained, and it's flushing all that stuff off of all of the ground.
Could you go back a screen? Why, on the very last one, the outlet of Lake Jean, why did it make that big jump?
Well, I don't know, but it could be that this is the unsequestered phosphorus coming out of Lake Jean, that you did a phoslock treatment in Lake Lorene, and it's locking it down. Lake Jean, you didn't do anything, so it's available to come out. I don't know. And, we could, like they say about statistics, you gotta be careful. And we can draw a whole lot of conclusions. There's a lot of different ways to skin this cat, but that could be a plausible explanation. Yeah.
Can we get these PowerPoint slides?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll get Gary with that. Okay. So fecal coliform. Stonebrook, why is this? So we had a big rain event, the first rain event of the wet season right after an extended period, and then you get this big giant reading of fecal coliform really high. So go to the next slide. And I think the reason for this is the Stonebrook drainage comes into both of these ponds down here on 329. If you're familiar, they have a little zoomed in, they have these aerators down here. And the homeowner, the Stonebrook complained that there was a whole bunch of weed growth that clogged up the intakes to these filtered to these aerators, and their fountains were screwed up. So our crew, we have control over those ponds, right? Well, so our crew went in there at the last dry opportunity of the summer and mucked around in there with chest waders, and then they took the weeds out. And Doug will probably tell you that this past summer, we've had a tremendous amount because of the warm weather and the sunny weather. You got just a lot of weed growth. And so when they did that, I think it disturbed that substrate in these ponds, which are a habitat for a lot of waterfowl and a legacy of everything coming off of the built environment upstream, that when it first rained, it just flushed all that stuff out, and we were there to collect that sample the day that happened. So that could be the explanation for that. But let's go back one more to the fecal, and I'll just the data. So then, again, we can take the average of all these and compare it to the King County stream data, and Joe's is a little bit higher than what you'd see in the average, but the real kicker of this is that when we get all the data back and all the fecal coliform results, there is a standard for streams in the state of Washington that you have to meet water quality standard for. And Joe's Creek would be, the standard would have to be met at a very strict limit because it all drains into Puget Sound, and there's shellfish harvesting down there with the Geauga. So it would be 50. We'd have to meet a 50. And if we're way up here, that would just mean that it's very high, and then we'd probably get a TMDL, and you'd have to have a cleanup plan or some type of, or like, is this pretty good?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just checking. So that's, so the more data we collect over a longer period of time, not trying to hide anything, it is what it is. These are numbers, and they're typical of the urban environment that that's what's gonna happen probably.
What number does that 256 average, the bottom?
This?
Yeah. what's
This,
that?
oh, that's all of these, all of our 6 sites combined.
So it's not a particular site that's
No,
averaged, just
no, I'm just for purposes of discussion, I'm just throwing it into some kind of hopefully meaningful information. Yeah,
Your bars indicate that the outlet of Lake Marine and the outlet of Lake Jean are the lowest. In the September meeting, some folks raised the issue of the geese population. That would suggest that the geese population is not the culprit on those 2 lakes.
well,
Is
I
that
don't
too much of
know.
an assumption?
The limited amount of information I know about, I mean, you'd have to look at when they populate. Are they out there all the time? Is there, I know there's a season where, when they're molting on the lake and they decoy in other populations, and in the summer you may have the highest population of the year, and we didn't capture that year. This is fall, winter geese population, so I don't know. But again, let's not read in too much. I'm trying to give you some interesting tidbits, but I don't want to make any conclusions, So it's this is gonna take a long-term study.
One of the first slides you showed was all these sources for phosphorus and nitrogen. Do you have any rules of thumb or industry standards for estimates on those sources of what percentage would be attributed to fertilizer? What percentage would be attributed to?
Yeah, there may be, the question was, there's a whole lot of different sources. How much percent is contributing from car washing in the neighborhoods? How much is fertilizing? It depends. I can tell you right off the bat, you have something that makes you unique here is the golf course, which skew that to, fertilizer is a higher contributor in the watershed. The amount of septic systems, so it would depend on the makeup of all, the different potential sources. But then, the difficult thing that I need to hammer away on this is that they're called point sources, and they're very difficult to identify, and they're very difficult to control. And they're just all in the environment, unless there's some high natural sources of phosphorus that we may have to investigate. So I don't think there's any number that you can put on it. It just depends. You look at the outline of the watershed, and then you can see the different types of, we could maybe apply a typical number for a typical Twin Lake-like neighborhood, something like that. So nitrogen, the same thing. The highest reading here is coming off of northeast Tacoma. No peak between northeast Tacoma and Sleepy Hollow. And then if you just apply the numbers, they're kind of in line with what you see in the areas, a third higher, but this is just another data dump and another way to look at it. So then our findings, there's no consistent patterns, no unusual sources of nutrients or fecal coliform identified so far that indicates an illicit discharge. That would be a septic system, sanitary illegal connections. But again, this is going to take a long-term, a bigger sample size if we ever figure this out. So element number 4 is, we're continuing an education and outreach program, and specifically for the Twin Lakes neighborhood to address this problem. This past year, Eagle Scouts put out 400 of these curb markers. There were 500 algae door hangers that were hung in the Twin Lakes, and we'll continue that program. We provided the HOA with a lot of information that they can disperse to you folks concerning household stormwater pollution prevention. And then we offer natural yard care and pollution prevention workshops that you can always come and figure out how to do things a little better. 5, we have a really state-of-the-art, very progressive asset management video inspection program that we look at our stormwater infrastructure in the city. These are, and then, so there's a video camera that runs on a track where tractor that goes down into the pipe, and then we can videotape that and capture observations so we can see if there are any illicit connections or unusual leakages into the system. Maybe the public system is leaking, but you know, we track all that. And then this is a map that just shows that in the green are the areas that we've already inspected. This is just kind of a zoomed in area. It's bigger than this. But we want to, you know, the blue is structures to be inspected or piping, and then green is what we have. So eventually all the blue will turn into green. And then the last thing, we applied for freshwater algae grant funding through the Department of Ecology last September. We put together a program that 66,000 plus amount, and that would mean if we did get that awarded, that the city would have to provide a 25% cap.